What if I told you that a single choice, made in a perfect paradise, unleashed all the pain and suffering we know today? Adam and Eve had everything: peace, beauty, and immortality. But one simple act of disobedience changed the course of humanity forever. In this story, we will uncover the hidden secrets of the Garden of Eden, explore the devastating impact of that decision, and understand how it still shapes the lives of every one of us. When Adam first opened his eyes, he was surrounded by an indescribable beauty, a vision no human would ever experience again. The air was pure, filled with the fragrance of vibrant blossoms, and around him every creature moved in perfect harmony. This was Eden, a place where peace reigned without shadow or fear, untouched by death or sorrow. It was the sanctuary of creation, where every detail bore the signature of the divine. The Creator leaned over the dust of the earth and performed an extraordinary act. He shaped Adam's body with divine precision, but then he did something no other creature had ever known. He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. In that sacred moment, clay became flesh, and lifeless matter gained a soul. Adam opened his eyes, not as a simple creature, but as the living image of God, carrying within himself the mystery of eternity. That breath carried with it more than life. It carried identity, purpose, and destiny. Adam was not just alive, he was an extension of the Creator himself, placed on earth as a reflection of the divine. His heart beat with unfailing love, his mind held the capacity to imagine and to choose, and his very being became the bridge between heaven and earth. Adam was not one among many. He was the beginning, the first human who bore the eternal mark of God. Every movement Adam made revealed the intention of the one who created him. His existence was a promise, a living testimony of what humanity was meant to be, a reflection of divine glory in every thought, every word, and every act. The responsibility placed upon him was immense, but so was the honor. He was chosen to be the foundation of a story that would echo through the generations. Among the lush trees and sparkling rivers of Eden, Adam received his mission. He was not a passive resident in paradise. He was its guardian and caretaker. Each flower that bloomed and every fruit that ripened was placed under his care. His hands, formed by the Creator, now shaped the earth, continuing the work of creation as a gardener of divine design. Day by day, Adam discovered joy in his purpose. As he tended to the garden, he saw creation flourish under his watchful eye. But his role extended beyond plants and soil. The Creator brought before him every living creature, from the mighty lion to the smallest insect. With wisdom granted from above, Adam named them all, forging a unique bond with each one. He became not a ruler of dominance, but a protector filled with care and responsibility. Through this act of naming, Adam realized the gift of freedom. He was not a puppet bound by command. He was a co-creator, entrusted with choice. The Garden of Eden was not only a place of unmatched beauty, but also a stage where Adam's decisions would begin to shape the destiny of all who would come after him. Every name spoken, every task completed was a reflection of his divine likeness and the freedom to live in communion with his Creator. Still, even within this abundance, a stirring began to grow inside him. Adam looked at the animals he had named and saw companionship among them, yet none was like him. He could lead, he could nurture, but he could not share his heart with any of them. A silent ache of solitude began to take root within the perfection of Eden. The Creator, seeing this emptiness, knew it was not good for man to be alone. In his boundless wisdom, he planned to bring forth the answer to Adam's longing, a companion who would walk beside him, equal in dignity and strength. And so, the story of Eden moved toward its next extraordinary chapter, the creation of woman. One evening, as the golden light of Eden softened and the garden glowed with quiet peace, the Creator caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep. It was not the sleep of weariness, for no fatigue yet existed, but a divine rest in which heaven itself moved silently around him. While Adam lay still, the Lord reached into his side and drew forth a rib, shaping from it something new, something beyond Adam's imagination. From that sacred piece of his own being, God formed a living soul, Eve, the first woman. When Adam awoke and his eyes fell upon her, an overwhelming joy filled his heart. Before him stood not just another creature, but someone like him, equal yet distinct, flesh of his flesh and bone of his bones. In her presence Adam felt complete. She was not a servant nor a rival, but a companion, destined to walk with him side by side in harmony. For the first time, Adam understood what it meant to share life, to give and receive love in perfect unity. Eve's existence was more than an answer to Adam's solitude. She was the finishing touch of humanity, the crown of creation. Together, they represented the fullness of God's design, two beings reflecting his image through their love, their partnership, and their unity. The garden became even more vibrant, for now there was laughter, conversation, and the wonder of companionship to enrich its beauty. As they explored the wonders of Eden, every tree, every flower, every creature seemed to celebrate their union. They worked together, tended the garden together, and walked in the presence of God together. Their bond was unbroken by doubt or pride, untainted by fear or shame. In that perfect balance, the first family was born, setting the foundation of human life that would ripple throughout time. Yet among all the trees in Eden, there was one that drew their eyes more than the rest. In the very heart of the garden stood the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Its fruit was unlike any other, radiant, alluring, and filled with a mystery they could not fully understand. They could touch every other tree, taste every other fruit, but of this one the Lord had spoken with unmistakable clarity. They must not eat, for on the day they did, death would surely come. The words of God lingered in their hearts, heavy with both love and warning. The forbidden tree was not just a plant, it was a symbol of choice, a reminder that their freedom was real and sacred. Their obedience would preserve life, but disobedience would open a door to consequences beyond their imagination. That fruit, resting silently on its branches, became a living test of trust and loyalty to the Creator. For a time, they accepted this boundary with peace. There was no lack in Eden, no hunger that remained unsatisfied, no joy withheld. Yet the presence of the tree remained, always within sight, always reminding them of the fragile line between obedience and rebellion. Its beauty stirred questions deep within, though they tried to silence them. Days in Eden unfolded like melodies of paradise. Adam and Eve lived in harmony with creation, surrounded by rivers of crystal waters and trees heavy with sweet abundance. They awoke with joy, worked with purpose, and rested without fear. But within the perfection of that world, the shadow of choice remained, resting in the center of the garden like a secret waiting to be unveiled. And then, one day, a new voice entered Eden. It did not come with thunder or light, but with subtlety, cloaked in the form of a serpent. Its eyes gleamed with hidden knowledge, and its tongue carried words that twisted truth with lies. Approaching Eve, it spoke with feigned innocence, planting the first seeds of doubt in human history. The serpent's question echoed with a dangerous charm. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? With that whisper, the stage was set for the choice that would forever alter the fate of mankind. Eve was startled by the serpent's bold words, yet curiosity stirred within her. She answered with honesty, repeating what God had commanded. They could eat of any tree in the garden, except for the one at its center. If they touched it or ate of its fruit, they would surely die. Her voice carried conviction, but her heart trembled as she spoke, for even in repeating the command, she felt the weight of its mystery. The serpent leaned closer, its voice smooth and persuasive, weaving lies with the precision of a blade. "You will not surely die," it whispered, its words sliding into her thoughts like shadows. "God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like him, knowing good and evil." Those words carried a promise far more intoxicating than the sweetness of the fruit itself, the promise of being more, of possessing knowledge beyond their reach. For the first time, Eve looked upon the fruit, not with fear, but with desire. Its beauty was undeniable, its colors brighter, its shape more inviting than all others. She saw in it not danger, but potential. The serpent's voice lingered in her mind, and suddenly obedience seemed like a chain holding her back from something greater. Her heart pounded with a new kind of longing, an urge to step beyond the boundary drawn by God himself. Adam stood beside her, silent but troubled. He remembered the command clearly, yet the serpent's words sowed unease even in his heart. Could it be true? Could this fruit unlock wisdom they had never known? Doubt, silent and corrosive, began to creep into his certainty, eating away at the trust he once carried so effortlessly. Eve's hand trembled as she reached toward the branch. The world around her seemed to pause, creation itself holding its breath as she drew the fruit into her palm. It was warm, pulsing with a strange allure, as if it held within it more than taste, perhaps destiny itself. She hesitated, but temptation proved stronger than caution, and with a single bite, history was forever changed. The fruit was sweet upon her tongue, yet behind its sweetness came something heavier, something unspoken. She turned to Adam, her eyes wide with both triumph and fear, and extended the fruit to him. He looked at her, at the woman who was part of his own flesh, and though the command of God rang loudly in his memory, he too raised it to his lips and ate. In that instant, Eden was no longer the same. A veil was torn from their eyes, and with newfound awareness came a crushing weight. They looked at one another and saw what they had never noticed before: their nakedness. What had once been pure and unashamed now burned with shame and vulnerability. The fruit promised knowledge, and indeed it delivered, but it was knowledge wrapped in guilt and sorrow. Desperate to hide their exposure, they gathered fig leaves and stitched them together into coverings. Yet no garment of leaves could conceal what had been lost. The innocence that once clothed them had vanished, leaving behind only a fragile attempt to cover the truth. For the first time, fear crept into their hearts, and the sound of Eden's harmony seemed to accuse them with every rustle of leaves and every whisper of the wind. The peace that had once filled their spirits was replaced by unease. What once was a sanctuary now felt like a courtroom, each step heavy with guilt. They knew they had broken the one command given to them, and the weight of disobedience settled like a shadow over their souls. The garden, once a paradise of freedom, now became a place where they longed to hide from the very God who had breathed life into their lungs. As the cool breeze of evening swept through the trees, they heard the sound of footsteps, the familiar presence of the Creator walking in the garden. But what had once been a moment of joy and communion now struck terror into their hearts. Trembling, they slipped into the shadows, seeking to escape the gaze of the one who knew them more deeply than they knew themselves. The voice of the Creator echoed through the garden, not in anger, but in sorrowful longing. "Adam, where are you?" The words carried weight, resonating through every tree and every breeze, reaching the very core of their trembling hearts. No longer a sound of comfort, it now felt like judgment. Adam, hiding among the leaves, felt his throat tighten as he finally whispered a broken reply. "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." In that confession lay the shattering truth. The innocence was gone, replaced by fear and shame. God's next words pierced even deeper. "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The question was not born of ignorance, for the Creator knew all things, but of confrontation, a chance for them to face their choice. And yet, instead of taking responsibility, Adam shifted the blame. "The woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit, and I ate." His words trembled with guilt and desperation, a feeble attempt to escape the burden of his own decision. The Lord then turned to Eve, and her eyes, once bright with joy, were clouded with tears of regret. She too tried to explain, her voice weak and trembling. "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Her confession revealed the first fracture of trust, the moment when doubt and pride had opened a door that could never again be closed. What had begun with harmony now dissolved into excuses, blame, and brokenness before the Creator's gaze. The serpent, once cunning and smug, now stood silent before the words of judgment. God's decree fell upon it with eternal weight. It would crawl upon its belly, despised among all creatures, cursed to slither in dust as a symbol of deception. Enmity would forever exist between the serpent and humanity, a prophecy of a coming battle between darkness and light that would echo throughout history. The deceiver's triumph was temporary, for within God's judgment was also the seed of redemption. To the woman, the sentence was both sorrowful and profound. The beauty of motherhood would now be intertwined with pain, the joy of bringing forth life forever marked by suffering. Her relationship with her husband would become a struggle of wills, a reminder that disobedience had altered even the harmony of love. Yet even within the curse, there remained a glimpse of dignity. She would still be the mother of all living, carrying within her the hope of generations yet to come. To the man, God spoke of toil and hardship. The earth, once generous and fruitful without effort, would now resist him. Thorns and thistles would rise from the ground, and only through sweat and labor would bread be earned. What was once a joyous partnership with the soil became a battle for survival, a daily reminder of the choice he had made, and ultimately the dust from which he was formed would claim him again, for death had now entered the story of humanity. In that moment, the perfection of Eden was lost. The garden that had once been filled with laughter, song, and divine presence was now heavy with grief. The innocence that clothed them was gone, and though God's heart was filled with compassion, his justice could not be ignored. The weight of their disobedience required consequence, and the gates of Eden could no longer remain open to them. Yet even in judgment, mercy was present. God looked upon their fragile coverings of leaves and replaced them with garments of animal skins, more durable and protective. In this act of love, he showed that though they had fallen, they were not abandoned. The Creator's care extended beyond punishment. He prepared them for the harsh world that awaited, clothing them not only with garments, but with a silent promise that his presence would not completely depart. As Adam and Eve stood at the edge of Eden, hearts heavy with sorrow, they knew they could never return. Behind them, cherubim were stationed, and a flaming sword turned in every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. The paradise that had been their home was now forbidden ground, sealed by divine decree. The sound of the river, the fragrance of the blossoms, the harmony of creation, all became a memory of what had been lost. With each step outside the garden, the weight of their decision pressed upon them. They were stepping into a world vast and untamed, filled with both possibility and hardship. Their hearts ached for the closeness they once had with God, for the innocence they had shattered, and for the home they had forfeited. But as heavy as their burden was, a flicker of hope remained, for deep within the sorrow of exile lay the first whisper of redemption. As Adam and Eve stepped into the world beyond Eden, everything felt unfamiliar. The ground was harder, the air heavier, and the silence around them was no longer comforting but daunting. Each tree outside the garden lacked the effortless beauty of those within, and every step felt like a reminder of what they had lost. Yet they walked forward, hand in hand, knowing that though paradise was closed, life itself had not been taken from them. The story of humanity had only just begun. The days outside Eden quickly taught them what the Creator's words had meant. The soil resisted their touch, and Adam felt the sting of sweat upon his brow as he labored to bring forth food from the earth. His hands, once used to gently tend the flourishing garden, now grew rough and calloused from toil. Each seed planted was a battle against the stubborn ground, but with patience and persistence, sprouts would rise. These small victories reminded him that though the curse was heavy, life still pushed forward under the Creator's watch. Eve, too, bore her part of the judgment. The joy of carrying life within her came hand in hand with the sharp pain of childbirth. What should have been a moment of only delight was shadowed with suffering. And yet when she held her children in her arms, when she looked into their tiny eyes and heard their first cries, she discovered a new kind of love, fierce and enduring. Her pain was real, but so was her joy, and in that paradox she learned the depth of what it meant to be human. As time passed, Adam and Eve began to feel the weight of mortality. Wrinkles touched their skin, their bodies tired more quickly, and the years left marks upon them. The eternity that had once seemed natural now gave way to the slow march of time. Death was no longer an abstract warning, it was a reality that loomed over their days. Yet within that fragile mortality, they discovered strength they had never known, learning resilience, perseverance, and the ability to endure through hardship. Generations grew from them, children and grandchildren who carried both the beauty and the burden of their legacy. In each child, Adam saw a reflection of himself and of Eve, but also a reflection of the choice they had made. The shadow of the fall extended beyond their lives, shaping humanity itself. Pain, struggle, and brokenness became woven into the fabric of existence, but so too did hope, determination, and the unquenchable longing for God. Adam often looked back in memory to the garden, to the taste of the forbidden fruit, and to the moment innocence slipped away. Regret clung to him, yet he also saw how even outside Eden, life was filled with moments of light. He watched his children grow, saw them laugh, saw them struggle, and saw them seek answers. Though exile was bitter, love continued to bloom in unexpected places, proving that not all was lost. The memory of Eden became both a sorrow and a guide. It was a reminder of perfection once held, but also a lesson of responsibility, how one choice can shape destinies yet unborn. Adam and Eve knew they could not undo what had been done, but they could teach their children about trust, about obedience, and about the mercy of the Creator who clothed them even in their failure. Their voices carried stories that would echo for generations, shaping the faith of those who came after them. Even as their bodies weakened with age, a quiet flame of hope remained alive within them. They remembered the words spoken in Eden, that one day the seed of the woman would crush the serpent's head. That promise whispered of redemption, of a future where humanity might be restored. It was a hope that allowed them to endure exile with courage, believing that God's plan, though hidden, was still unfolding. The world outside Eden was filled with trials, yet it was also a place of discovery. Humanity learned to build, to create, to love, and to seek. The journey was no longer one of perfect peace, but of growth through adversity. Adam and Eve, once surrounded by untouched perfection, now became the first to walk the harder road of a fallen world. Their tears watered the ground as much as their sweat, but through both, the story of mankind was written. And so, the legacy of Eden is not merely one of loss, but of learning, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between humanity and its Creator. Adam and Eve remind us that though we fall, though we wander far from the paradise once given, there is always a thread of divine mercy woven into the fabric of our story. From dust they were formed, to dust they would return, but the spark of God's breath remained within them, passing from generation to generation, a living testimony that even in exile, hope endures.